Oh, hello, I'm Mark Roke, I'm the Product Manager for Iris Exchequer, and welcome to what is the Exchequer Roadshow presentation. This particular year has been an exceptionally busy year for us here at Iris, with 4 releases being made available to you during 2011, and what I'm going to do in this first section is take you through a little bit of a look back and review of what we've done throughout the year, and as part of that presentation we'll also be having a look at what's coming up in version 6.9. So here we are with the Iris Exchequer Roadmap and Product Update from the 2011 season of Iris Exchequer Roadshows. It was at the previous roadshows in November of 2010 that I announced to the customers that we were about to embark on what would be one of the most productive and prolific delivery periods of recent times for the Exchequer product, and our objective was to release 4 editions of Iris Exchequer during 2011, and it is with great pleasure that I'm able to confirm that indeed those 4 releases were made, starting off at the beginning of the year with Iris Exchequer version 6.5, followed by version 6.6, 6.7, and then most recently in November version 6.8. I think what's very important to explain here is the content of those 4 particular editions have very much been driven by your feedback. So if we think about the customer feedback forms that you complete at these roadshows for us, or the customer satisfaction surveys we send out, any time that you engage with your client development manager or speak with a member of support, or any member of Iris for that matter, those little nuggets of information, those little comments with regards to how better that software could work for you, are indeed recorded and held, and they are fed into these particular releases. And what I'd like to do at this particular juncture is to just look back over those 4 releases and just pick out some of the highlights from each one. So we'll start back at the beginning of the year in March with Iris Exchequer version 6.5, and what we did in that edition was focused on what I call customer experience, the user experience of the product. And one of the big things we did there was to improve the way that we store and display our screens. I'm sure we all know that inside the Exchequer product we can change the way our screens look by having different columns, moving those around, perhaps increasing the font size, changing the background colour. And it is fair to say that after a prolonged period of heavy customization, sometimes those screens were prone to not displaying as you would expect. So maybe the occasional scroll bar was missing, or perhaps a button wasn't quite where it should be. So in 6.5 what we did, we refactored and re-engineered the entire mechanism on how our screens are displayed and used within the product, thus giving you that uninterrupted experience. So when you go and open up a sales daybook or a customer record, everything is where you expect it to be, and you can just continue your day-to-day activities without any unnecessary interruption. With that experience piece in mind, we also focused on what I'm calling more informed system messaging. So by that, what it is, you may have noticed that within those editions we've got some additional screens that pop up that just have a little short message that explain to the user what is actually happening within the product. So there may be occasions when you go off and click a button for it to go off and do a process, and it appears not to be doing something, whereas behind the scenes we know that Exchequer is actually working to the task requested. So by having a little message pop up, it better informs you of what's going on. It may prevent you from actually clicking again and perhaps increasing the risk of an issue. But also, one of the great benefits of this would be for some new users. So you have somebody new that comes into your organisation, not fully up to speed with Exchequer, but is able to operate and function. How better for them to learn by Exchequer actually telling them what is going on. So we've got that little bit of messaging coming up just to help people understand what is happening with the Exchequer product. And also with regards to better advising, we introduced a very simple little checkpoint at the point of doing a daybook post. So I go to post my sales daybook. At that point the posting dialog pops up, and at that moment we go off and look at the balance on the trial balance itself to make sure that it is indeed in balance. If it's not in balance, we will advise you of that and give you advice on how to deal with that situation. So again, better informing you of what's happening within your Exchequer system. Moving on then to the the spring summertime, we released version 6.6, and this one was pretty much focused around performance gains and performance benefits. And one of the big things we put inside 6.6 was the Add to Scheduler button onto the posting daybook. And what this enables us to do is to take the load from the workstation of a daybook post and put it directly onto the server itself, thus freeing up your workstation, plus also you enabling to gain some performance benefits of up to around 85% by performing a daybook post on the server. The scheduler facility has been with the product now since version 6, and the Add to Schedule button we've put on the daybook gives your users even greater access to that facility without having to log off and log onto the server separately and create tasks. You can do it here and now at the point of working, so improving your efficiencies and productivity. Performance still very much in mind. One of the big features of Exchequer is its budgeting capabilities, and lots of people like the idea of using cost centers departments with those budgets and setting individual values on those. And then through the power of the GL itself, where we can expand and collapse the tree, we want to be able to see those budget values from a consolidated view. Sure enough, the product would be able to roll up those budget values for you prior to 6.6, but it was a very labour intensive task. So in 6.6 we again re-engineered and refactored the way in which that works, and we've achieved performance benefits of around about 95%, so really giving some more power to that feature within the product. And we also continued with the screen mechanism of the way of making sure that those screens are displayed correctly for you whenever you open them, that we rolled out originally in version 6.5. Moving on then to the summertime, we had Iris Exchequer version 6.7, whereby the big feature in that one was the re-engineering of the Sentinel module. IT environments are changing all the time, people using virtualization, multiple servers, big powerful servers, etc. to get the best out of their systems. And what we've done there with Sentinel is to make that more native into those environments, so ensuring that the robustness and reliability of Sentinel is bang up to date with today's modern IT environments. Another big piece we put inside version 6.7 was around some enhanced securities on trader records, so customers and suppliers, and specifically around bank and credit card information that's stored on those trader records. So if we're thinking here about the PCI compliance, so we have now ability to display or hide those details on a user per user basis. But in addition to that, we've also applied to that an audit log, so we can actually keep track of any changes that are made on those bank details or credit card details within customer and supplier records. And of course now, most recently with version 6.8, which was launched in November, we have a few more items in there, and this one included the number one item at the time from our wishlist register, was to be able to display permanently the general ledger codes within the GL itself. It's very interesting for me as the product manager to understand that it is often the simple little things within a software solution that can make all the difference to a customer's experience and usage of the product. So that is why that particular item of being able to display those GL codes permanently within your GL has made it into version 6.8. Another thing that people like to do is to make better use of the web. We've been doing this with our Exchequer Live product, and also people want to be able to use that interactively with inside Exchequer itself. So what we've done here is extend the links option within the product, which is across things like customers and suppliers and transactions, which would enable you to link off to say to an image or a Word document for an additional piece of information on that. What we're now able to do is link stock records, customers, etc. going off to actual web pages. So for instance, if your organisation has an online catalogue, to save you time of importing all that additional information into Exchequer, you can now just add some URL links through to your stock codes in Exchequer using the links function and taking it directly through to your web page. Similarly, you could do the same for your suppliers or even your customers if you want to have some more information about where they're located, what their activity is there any promotions that they're doing that you can take advantage of. Why not have those links set up there on your trader records as well, keeping your users better informed and be able to make those all important decisions that can make or break a good deal and a good sale. And another great thing inside 6.8 was some of the re-engineering and refactoring work we've done around some of the key standard reports inside the product, and this is around the MS SQL edition. So this is where we've taken advantage of the capabilities of the MS SQL platform, enabling us to get better performance and better efficiencies out of the system. And by doing that, it's not all about the MS SQL edition either, because some of the engineering that we've done with our code to make those reports work, we've been able to take some of those pieces that we've learned and apply that through into the pervasive edition. And as we progress through 2012, we'll be able to see some of those benefits filtering down across both editions of the product, again giving you better performance, better efficiencies, improving your productivity, and allowing you to get on with the all-important business of running your business organization. A lot of items in these particular editions, and it sums up to just over 480 mods and enhancements across those 4 releases. It's an exceptionally busy time for us in 2011, but again, based on the comments and feedback that we receive from you, our customers, we cannot stress just how important this information is. It helps us guide and steer our product, so we know that when we make a software delivery, we are delivering at that point in time the maximum benefit that we can to our customers, and we're very keen to continue with this. So again, with any opportunity that you have when you're speaking with a representative of Iris, be that an account development manager, be that a support tech, or any one of us, anything you wish to say, please let us know, because it really does drive how we build and shape our Exchequer product. So what I'd like to do now is perhaps just take you into the Exchequer product for a few moments and just show you 1 or 2 of those little features that we've had put in over those 4 releases. Okay, so let's take a look at the Iris Exchequer product, and let's have a little bit of a look back and pick up on some of the points and changes and features that we introduced over the period of 2011. And the first thing I want to start with is that number 1 item on the wishlist register, which was indeed the ability to permanently show general ledger codes on the GL tree itself. So there you go, I've just opened up the GL tree, and sure enough, the GL code numbers are there. Now traditionally in the product, what we need to do is click on the options button and set this switch to on, so put this little tick here to show GL codes. You can see that's already set, but if I untick that, it will of course remove the general ledger codes from the GL tree. If I close the general ledger and then reopen it, sure enough, those GL codes are now back permanently displayed. So these can be set on a user per user basis, and the way that can be done is inside the utilities system setup and on the passwords. On the opening screen for each user, a new switch has been dropped in there, which is called the show GL code. So quite obviously, if we have that set, those GL codes will be visible within the tree permanently. If I untick that, my GL codes will not be displayed. So again, it's your choice. Display or not display, all controlled from in the user settings. Another piece that we did inside Exchequer, this was in version 6.7, was to extend the securities around bank and credit card details on the traders. So this would be for customers and suppliers, but for the purpose of this demonstration I shall continue with the customers. So if we open up a customer record and go to the Ecom tab, prior to version 6.7, this is what you would see. So the bank account, sort code, bank reference, credit card numbers, etc. would all be visible to anybody who had access through to the trader list. But again, through the addition of some new passwords and new functionality, what we can do, we can mask that away. So if we go into sales and customers, customer records, this new password option here, view bank card details, if I simply untick that, just close that down, and let's reopen the customer record, go now to the Ecom tab, you can see that those fields have now been masked by a series of asterisks. So we're protecting that information for those who only need to see that. I still have the edit capability here on the screen, so if I click on the edit button and I go into the sort code for argument's sake, open that, hit the delete key, perhaps backspace, try it and enter some numbers in there, you can see that although I've got the edit functionality, I cannot make any changes to those fields within the trader record. But I could of course go off and edit any other field, say like the alternate search reference or the company name, but I am protected from the bank and credit card details. As part of the process that we did around the securities, we also went about and introduced an audit log file to be able to track those changes. And this audit file is also password protected, but I will now just quickly go into that. So from the system setup, we have this new menu here, the Trader Bank Card Audit. And what this is just a simple log file that records any changes made to those particular fields, so around the bank account, credit card number, sort code, anything in that area. Those pieces will be recorded, and what we store here is what the value was prior to the edit, and then we record, as you can see on the right hand side, the changes that have been made after the edit has been completed. So we've got the original value and the new value. So the card name changed there, and it's been updated with the new name. Not only do we record the changes, we record the version of Exchequer that the change was made upon, the window user ID, so if you have a machine login, that there is recorded. You then have the Exchequer username, and of course the date and time to which the change took place. And as you go through and make changes to your trader records, they will be recorded as part of this process. And if you wish to archive off, or say keep the files to a minimum size, you can do precisely that by clicking on the archive button. And then from within this audit log, you can recall and retrieve previous audit files, so you can keep track at any point in time. Now it's important to say that with this masking facility we have inside Exchequer, that too is extended through to the reporting aspects. So if people have access to, say, the visual report writer or some of the OLE functions, if they haven't got permission to view the bank and credit card details inside the core product, then those reporting functions will also prevent them from getting hold of that information. So that is also protected as well. So overall, all-round protection from your system with regards to bank and credit card details. Now, on the topic of audit trails and keeping track of things, one of the big things that we do get asked for is who raised that transaction, or who added that customer. And of course we can go into the transaction, we can look on the field on the top right and it'll say Mark, and that will be fine because it'll record the person who last edited that transaction. It doesn't mean to say that it was Mark that added that transaction, because if, for example, if Tim added it 2 days previously, when it was first added, it would say Tim, whereas now when I go in and edit that transaction, it'll be updated with Mark. And what we don't have is a record of who originally added that transaction. So with that request in mind, what we've done, we've rolled out an entry-level audit system that will cover all transaction types. It'll cover stock records, job records, trader records, so customers and suppliers. So whenever a change is made to an edit or a record is added, we will record that information. This record was added, the date and the time, and by whom. What we're not able to do at this stage is record the exact details of any edits or changes, but we at least are able to track and record who did that and when. So if we take a look, for example, on a trader record again, if we go to the notes option, I'm sure we're all familiar with the notes. We have the dated and the general notes, but what I have here, if I go onto the switch 2, we have this new option here, which is the audit history notes. So if I click on that, there you can see there are a list of changes that have been made by, in this case, the manager on those various dates to this customer record. And similarly, if I was to go onto a transaction, so we're going to the sales daybook, let's just pick on this invoice here, open that up, go to the notes tab on the transaction, again down to the switch 2, you'll see we have the audit history notes piece there, and if we click on that, we can see those changes and the time and the date and by whom those changes were made. So as I said, this comes across on all transaction types. It'll be on job records, stock records and customer and supplier records. And for anybody who uses, say, OLE or the importer to bring transactions and records into the system, or maybe you have some bespoke that uses our toolkits to import information into your system, that activity will also be recorded, so you will have visibility as to if a transaction has been entered via OLE. It'll say OLE created and then the date and the time, so you'll have a good recognition as to what's been happening within your system. Now if you want to be able to see that at a quick level, perhaps a report would be a good idea. So if we come up to our reports menu, go on to the miscellaneous reports and down to the audit trail, you'll see that we have a series of audit note reports covering those areas of the system that we've applied this audit trail to, and it's a very straightforward little report. You can have a date range on there, so you can specify over a month or a couple of days activity. The choice again would be yours. And there's a couple of sort options there as well, so you can sort by the date of edit or date of change and entry, or by, in this case, it would be the account code that you could do the sort by. And that's across, say, all 4 aspects of the audit note system. So another good way of having some more visibility of activity within your product. The last thing I'm going to quickly show you now is an extension that's been made to the Exchequer system that again has been requested for many times by customers, and that is to increase the availability of user-defined fields throughout the system. So if we think about those areas that we've done the audit notes for, so that'll be all transaction types, and also in this case all transaction lines. We'll have customers and suppliers, stock records and job records. What we have now done, as I say, is extended those user-defined fields. If we go to this transaction here and click on the little drop down for the header, what we will see there is now an additional 6 user-defined fields on the transaction header. So again, this is all transaction types. If I open up a transaction line, you'll see a further 6 user-defined fields there too. If we say go into a customer record, so go there, onto this particular customer, onto the defaults tab, you can see there we have an additional 6 user-defined fields there, and the same for the stock and the job records and supplier records as well. These additional user-defined fields can really open up your reporting capabilities. So if there's more information that you want to store on a record to be able to apply more filters to your reports, perhaps record some very pertinent information to your business, you now have the capacity to do that better than ever before. And it's also important to say that for those of you that are using the user-defined field plugin, whereby you can say create mandatory lists or additional drop downs or record more dates in your system and force users to make an entry into a user-defined field, the additional 6 has been ported across into that plugin as well, so you've got full support there. Similarly, you'll have that inside OLE, you'll have that also inside the importer and the toolkits as well. So you've got all-round flexibility as before with the 4 user-defined fields, but with an additional 6. Now, traditionally the user-defined fields were controlled from the system setup from a little tab here called Custom Fields, and this is where you could define your own custom labels for those fields and enable and disable the existing 4. As part of this edition, we have indeed removed that from the system setup, and it has its own little dialog all of its own off the system setup menu. So user-defined fields, so here you are, similar tree structure you've seen throughout the Exchequer product. If I just quickly expand all those, you can see that in this case we've got the customers there, all 10 user-defined fields available for you to use, and you can go in and edit and change the label, disable or enable those fields as and when you require. And just another little minor change, down here we have tick to enable. So on the previous systems it was a tick to hide, so if you didn't want to show that field you would set that tick on, whereas now in following more convention throughout Exchequer and consistency, to actually show that field you'll quite simply just tick the field that you require, so highlight that, and in this case it's already set and we'll tick that, and that all is well. So that's just some of the items that we've put in over this 12 months. Most notably there it would be the user-defined fields and the audit system, and they will be available to you all very shortly with the release of RS Exchequer 6.9. So 12 months, 4 releases, what's next? Okay, well there's RS Exchequer version 6.9. I showed you in the demonstration a couple of new features that are appearing in 6.9, and that'll be available to you from February of next year, so February 2012. And of course 6.9 will include those new user-defined fields, so a total of 10 per record type I've listed there, so transaction types and lines, stock records, job records and trader records. Plus also there will be the new audit system coming into version 6.9. And I mentioned in the presentation around the reporting that we did in 6.8 for the MS SQL edition, we've extended some reports as well inside 6.9, so this will be the full trial balance, profit and loss balance sheet and the general ledger pre-posting report to complement the work we did in 6.8, and that was around the simplified trial balance and the aged debtors and creditors reports. So more to come in 2012, version 6.9 in February of that year.